dirty wanker. Love him to bits, really. Out on the old Moto Guzzi V7. Oh, it's the Moto Guzzi V7. Hey, that's a cracking colour, isn't it, that one? Hey, look at that. For those of you that watch Mr. Darcy and the Old Man, Mr. Darcy has gone and got himself a Moto Guzzi V7. We've got the V7 Special, this being the V7 Stone Special Edition. And both him and the Old Man, of course, saying they prefer the Special because of the sport wheels, fair enough, and the twin analog dials as opposed to this here LCD offset unit here. And I know there's no shortage of comments whenever I do anything on this bike from people. They're saying basically that their OCD tendencies are offended by this offset LCD display. And quite a few people basically saying, with some justification, I would say with some justification, but for a retro bike to be sporting such a blatantly non-retro instrumentation setup is, yeah, shall we say, not the pinnacle of design consistency. Or in other words, they can't bloody stand it. So why did I go for this bike then? I'll put my cards on the table, absolutely. I would prefer it if this bike had twin analog dials, some nice big dials, say as big as that in terms of diameter, ×2 in chrome, or black anodized for that matter. I think would be look a lot better, but would obviously add significantly to the cost of the manufacture of the bike, I would suggest. Yeah, I would love that, but I don't think there's an aftermarket option for anything like that on this bike. And for me, because this bike is actually more expensive than the V7 Special, and the reason I plumped for this over and above the V7 Special itself was just the overall looks of the bike. So this black and red colour scheme, the Arrow Performance upswept exhausts that are on this particular model, the bar end mirrors, they are cast wheels, but that means on this bike that they are tubeless, and they're a damn sight easier to clean. And it's all about the to me, with making this decision, the visual impact of the bike. And overall, for me, this particular model in the V7 range ticked all the right boxes. And if the trade-off for that was putting up with this here LCD display, which is perfectly usable, it tells you everything that you need to know, even though there isn't a fuel gauge, but I always set the trip meter, so that's not an issue for me whatsoever. Notwithstanding that, you know, just the look of the bike, for me, sealed the deal. and which is not to say that the V7 Specials, with that slightly more faithful tribute to the bikes of yesteryear. It's not to say that those bikes aren't fantastic in their own right. It was a very close call, but for the additional 700 quid that this bike costs over and above the special, the standard special, I just had to have it. It spoke to me. It whispered to me like siren voices, buy me, buy me, buy me. Hey! And over and beyond that simple truth, I can't really explain what it is. I'd simply say I just love the looks of this bike, absolutely love the looks of this bike. I just think it looks a little bit more, shall we say, industrious and raw than the slightly more blingy V7 Special, and so less metal and chrome to polish, which is good. But of course looks are entirely subjective, and what spoke to me about this bike would not necessarily speak to everybody else. So yeah, I'd love it to have two nice big analog dials up front, but that option is not there. And life is all about compromise, isn't it? Very seldom in life can you have exactly what it is you want. Very seldom. But it absolutely does not in any way detract from the riding experience and the ownership experience of this here Moto Guzzi V7. I'm loving it. Now, but on that subject, that being the subject of the subjectivity, the subject of subjectiveness, is that a tautology? Not quite, I don't think. The subject of subjectiveness. And when we talk about how things appeal to the eye and to the ear, for that matter. Oh, not another road closed. Yeah, while we're on that subject of things that are visually appealing or aurally appealing, and how what works for one person does not necessarily work for another, we're inevitably drawn in sort of by way of deductive reasoning into the field of art. Yes, art. Because that's what these beaks that's what these bikes often are, aren't they? Works of art, works of automotive art, and we all speak, don't we, in comparative terms about how one bike looks as against how another bike looks. And that comes down to notions of art. And I got to wondering, what is art? I think the great American photographer, great American landscape photographer, which you may know I'm a massive fan of, Ansel Adams, described art as being something like this, the giving and receiving of beauty in equal measure, which is a pretty good definition. I certainly couldn't improve upon that. And Ansel Adams' finest of black and white landscape works are pure art. Aye, and I just got to thinking, I wonder when was the first time in the history of humanity that a human being created something for no other reason than to appeal in terms of its beauty to another human being. You know, created something not for practical reasons, not for reasons of utility, not for reasons of storytelling, not for reasons of historical recording, not for any of those practical reasons, but purely to appeal to the human eye, or the human ear in the case of music and poetry and things of that nature, the human eye. So it's about the visual experience versus the aural experience. And I wonder when that was. I suppose by definition it's almost impossible to say, isn't it? I mean, I suppose there's all the thousands of years old cave paintings and rock paintings and what have you. But they may have had some form of utility. You know, the purpose behind them being created might not have been artistic. It might have been, you know, to record history. It might have been to tell a story. It might have been to impart information, or it might have been a bit of both. But the first time any human being, probably somebody somewhere does know. If you know the answer, please feel free to write in the comments. The first known occasion, the first known example of a human being creating something, either visually or orally, aurally, for purely artistic purposes, you know, with no other reason in mind other than to convey some form of emotion. And I suppose, you know, you can go back to ancient Aboriginal art and ancient Celtic art and things like that, but I wonder when the first time ever that happened, because the minute it did, it set in train a sequence of events which basically eventually evolved into, fed into design. Concepts of design. And of course the notion of design, the design of objects, is many hundreds if not thousands of years old. But when it comes to things like motorcycles and cars and just about anything you care to mention, from houses to microwaves, from ocean liners to aircraft, from, you know, skateboards and back to motorcycles again. There's an element of the design process which is about form and function and durability and efficiency and cost effectiveness and all of that, but there is also an element which is a purely artistic element, and that's where bikes like this in particular come into their own. Because Moto Guzzi could make a bike that does everything that this bike does, I'm sure, that would look completely boring and vanilla and charge a lot less for it. But obviously it's commercially advantageous to knock out something which has a certain visual appeal as well as its functional appeal. And bikes that are as easy on the eye as bikes like the V7 and others. I speak specifically about the Moto Guzzi V7 because I'm on one, and obviously because I find them an incredibly good looking motorcycle. This bike makes me feel special in a way which extends beyond the actual way that it makes me feel in terms of the ride. These almost sort of abstract notions are by their very nature very, very difficult to describe accurately. But riding a bike like this out here in this beautiful, beautiful landscape makes me feel a lot more special than it would if I was riding something which didn't actually speak to those sort of artistic depths, if you like. And as I said, it's very, very different for different people. Some people will find this bike as ugly as bloody sin. I feel sure not everybody's a lover of retro inspired motorcycles, are they? But they certainly are enjoying a huge amount of popularity, albeit that I have seen it written, nay, heard it said, that the popularity of modern classic motorcycles is on the wane. I suspect that there's a lot more to it than that, and that principle, if indeed a principle it be, extends far beyond just motorcycles of this particular design type. Yeah, so in terms of this Moto Guzzi V7, and this will apply to other motorcycles as well, of course, I tend to think that the way that the bike is styled, the way it's been designed purely in terms of its looks, its appearance, the way it presents itself, that has been a sort of a primary consideration. The design has specifically had in mind a certain visual appeal. Whereas things like its incredibly rewarding sound and feel are less sort of primary and more consequential in design terms, if you see what I mean. So the looks of the bike derives from a desire, an intention from the outset by the designer or designers to appeal in a certain way on a purely visual basis, not on a functional basis. Whereas the sort of visceral appeal of bikes like this with air-cooled V-twin engines, old style engines like this dating back decades, that undoubtedly ever-present element of the bike, it's all part and parcel of the package, is how it sounds and feels as well as how it looks, but that's more sort of consequential. You know, I don't think when Moto Guzzi, let's put it in simple terms because I'm waffling on like a good one now, and I bet you're out there thinking, bloody hell Wheeler, what the chuffing hell are you on about? I know what I'm on about. Let me try and distill it down. I think when Moto Guzzi designed a good looking bike like this, they always intended designing a good looking bike. But when Moto Guzzi designed a fantastic looking and sounding engine like this, I don't think they ever intended to design an engine with a view to it sounding good or looking good. I think it was just designed according to the sort of performance requirements at the time, and it just so happens that we end up with an engine like this, which is so full of character, as indeed with other engines, you know, Triumph parallel twins, lots of motorcycles have engines that both look and sound good, that were never really intended to have that quality from the outset. So it's more, you know, how this bike, from the point of view of the engine, looks and feels, is more a consequential thing, but how the bike overall looks to the eye is very much the result of deliberate design intentions. How's about that for a bit of a philosophy? It makes sense to me. But as you know, I absolutely love this bike. It's a right eye turner as well, has to be said. You know, when I pack the old CF Moto up, it barely bats an eyelid amongst people, particularly amongst people that aren't necessarily motorcyclists or motorcycle enthusiasts. But park this up, or the Royal Enfield Classic 350, and before very long you have admirers aplenty, like iron filings to a magnet, looking at and making sweet cooing noises about these here bikes and what they remind people of. And I think people don't expect to see Moto Guzzis. I think more than any other make of motorcycle, a Moto Guzzi will just give you that moment of pause, you know, just a great bike for generating a double take, where people sort of look and think, mate, what is that? That's just a bit different. Why is it different? How is it different? And it's definitely the configuration of this V-twin engine with the sticky out cylinder heads here. Now, I think it's fair to say, a couple of people have said it's not transverse. Some people say it's transverse, some people say no, it's longitudinal. I just say it's Moto Guzzi. And it keeps your knees warm in winter. Hey! And it's a piece of piss for a half competent mechanic to set the valve clearances, because just look at those cylinder heads. They don't take much fettling, do they? Here we are, Howstein Gorge. Andy says he wants to buy me lunch. I bought a sandwich with me in my little retro man bag that's slung in a camp manner over my shoulder at a jaunty angle. Very sort of Dick Emery, or very Larry Grayson like. What a gay day. Oh, you are awful, but I like you. Do you remember that? Dick Emery. Oh. Hey. Yeah, so I've got the camp old man bag here with me potted meat sandwich in there, but I can always stick that in the old fridge when we get back if Andy's insisting on buying lunch. I keep tormenting him because he likes to get his coins out and count them in a pensioner-like manner. Yes. And I keep tormenting him about having one of them there leather clamshell pouches that old gimmers used to have back in the day, if you remember, for your coins. Do you remember them? Them clamshell leather things, sort of. Yeah, clamshell. That's the best way I can describe them. And they allowed you to slip your coins out into the lid and count out your pound, shilling and pence. Well, just shillings and pence back then. Pounds were paper pounds. Aye. So anyway, he assures me that he's got one of them. Just been telling the good people about your leather camshell old man's bloody coin container. You've got one? Bring it with you, because I've got to the stage now where I need an excuse to take the piss. I've run out of self-evident examples.
I'll take the piss. You sure?
DCT. Love him a bit, really.
Oh, I've got my handbrake.
Handbrakes.
Can't leave it in gear, can you?
This is DCT snobbery manifesting itself now, where you go around talking about putting it in drive and setting my handbrake and all of that.
It's alright, you're laughing, you'll get there.
I tell you, it's coming.
Not one of those little ADVXs, get rid of them.
Over my dead body.
You said that about this. 3 months ago.
Right folks, hope you enjoyed that load of old nonsense. If you did, please click like, please click subscribe, and until the next time, and in the meantime, if you're riding, ride safe, be kind to your fellow man and woman, and of course, I'll see thee. We sorted, everything in stock.
Yeah. That's not alright. Oh, photo baby. Do you want this to go one? Nah, I'll be late,
Some are alright, aren't they?
Oh, there's all these videos coming out, the DJI cameras.
Well, isn't that interesting? Did you see Banter Motos? Three-way comparison.
Yeah, yeah.